Christmas Eve, everyone. We're the Hills Maniacs, and today we're going to be reviewing one of the funniest Christmas movies we've ever seen, Elf. So if you've never seen Elf, basically the premise is that Buddy, well, I guess that's just his name in the movie. His name is Buddy, but his full name is Buddy the Elf. But
Buddy T. Elf.
Buddy is a normal human who, when he was a baby in an orphanage, he sneaks into Santa Claus's bag when Santa comes to deliver the presents to the orphanage, and then he winds up living his whole life as an elf, but he's like the biggest elf of them all because they're all tiny and he's a human, so he's huge. And he's played by Will Ferrell as an adult, and the whole movie is just hilarious. I'd say it's like one of Will Ferrell's funniest movies, honestly. So he grows up on the North Pole, like working with the elves and everything, but he's huge because he's a normal human and they're all just elves. And then he discovers that he's actually a human, and he wants to go find his actual dad, who didn't even know he was born because the woman he got pregnant left him at some point in his life, and then she ended up passing away after she gave birth and sent Buddy to an orphanage. So that's how that all connects. He wanted to go visit his father, who's like a businessman in New York City.
He's a book publisher.
Yeah, in New York City. But he's like one of those people that just kind of like is a serious person. Yeah. And then Buddy, of course,
he's greedy.
Yeah. And then Buddy, of course, doesn't know how to act like a normal person, so he's wearing this hilarious elf costume throughout the whole movie.
Yep.
Acting all, he's just acting like a child because that's all he really knows how to do. And he's just completely... I said, that's honestly not the weirdest thing they would have seen walking around in New York City.
True.
A man dressed in an elf costume, but... So yeah, that's kind of what the whole premise of the movie is, and then, he has to try and, like, get his father to believe that he actually is an elf and everything, because nobody believes him that he's an elf, If you watch the movie, it feels like a parody of several different Christmas movies while also being its own Christmas movie, because it had its own premise. Like, we've never seen that in Christmas movies and stuff like that before. Like, it had a little bit of, like, at the start, he goes outside and there's, like, fake snow and stuff. There's a cartoon snowman that talks to him like what it looked like in Rudolph, which I guess was kind of stop motion, maybe. And there's like creatures that you would have seen in like Rudolph, except there's a narwhal too for some reason. So
because it's in the Arctic.
Right. So it kind of parallels, Rudolph there. It's got a little bit of like maybe a little bit of Home Alone-ish type stuff, because he mentions how the furnace sounds weird and stuff. But it's just a lot of hilarity ensues throughout the whole movie.
Yes, it's a very funny movie. If you haven't seen it, where have you been for the last?
It's been out since
like 15 years.
I think it's been out since 2002, maybe.
I
maybe
think,
a little bit
somewhere
after
around
that.
there.
Yeah.
Early 2000s. I know that.
I know that.
It was directed by Jon Favreau, who
also appeared in it.
Iron Man, and MCU stuff.
So
to see this kind of movie from Jon Favreau, before Iron Man, and really before we even knew who Jon Favreau was from the MCU, it's just weird to go back and look at like these different things that he's done. Now especially working on The Mandalorian and working on Marvel, and then you look at this and it's like, how did he direct this? But he is a funny guy. So. And Will Ferrell did a perfect job.
Oh yeah.
As Buddy the Elf. I don't think there was anybody else that could have done this. Because it's a specific type of comedy that Will Ferrell does. You look at people, like Adam Sandler or Jim Carrey or any of these other comedic actors that are in movies. All of them have their own type of comedy that they do. They're all funny. Yes. And it's just like Jim Carrey is more of kind of like a serious silliness rather than just being flat out silly like Will Ferrell can do.
Yeah, because Will Ferrell had to play, he's basically playing a child.
Right.
So, like, because he doesn't know how to act like a human person or an adult and everything. So it's like, that he did that through the whole movie. Yeah. And he didn't understand why people did things a certain way, why they have a fake Santa at the mall or whatever, you know, things like that, like, or why people don't decorate for Christmas and eat candy in the big city and all this other stuff. So he's like surprised by all that. So like the whole movie, you know, he's trying to get people to like celebrate Christmas and believe in Santa and believe in Christmas, you know, through the whole movie and stuff. And people just think he's weird, but you know, he's got that like jolly, like childish spirit to him. And he kept that through the whole movie, and I was like really impressed with that. Like, I don't, like you said, I don't think there's anybody else that could have filled this role. He did remind me of like Adam Sandler, like from like Billy Madison and stuff. It's sort of what this felt like. Because there's a moment where he's sitting in a classroom with the other elves, and he's like the biggest one in the room, and then they're all like just sitting.
Billy Madison.
So it's like when Billy Madison goes back to school and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but like I said, I just don't think that anybody else would have been good in that role. I mean, yeah, they're all funny. You know, Adam Sandler's hilarious. Jim Carrey's funny, but it was just something specific about this type of comedy and this type of role that I think only Will Ferrell could have fit this. And there's always those kinds of roles in every movie where it's like you look back on it and seeing somebody else in that role probably wouldn't have worked, or you look at who the other choices were for this role and you're like, it wouldn't have worked out had this person done it.
It feels like it was written specifically for him.
Right, and that's the good part about things like this, is that like you can write something that's just so silly that it just seems like it was meant for Will Ferrell. Right. And like the writers sat down and they're like, before they even knew who was going to be in it, they're going to be like, imagine Will Ferrell in this movie. This is what it would be like, and then he gets in it.
I just like that he's dressed in the elf costume like the whole time. Yeah, that must have been uncomfortable. Yeah. Well, there's a point where he ends up wearing a suit and tie and stuff.
Well, for a short
and like
period
normal
of
clothes, but like I said, that outfit must have been really uncomfortable and stuff too, because he's got like tights on and stuff, like yellow tights and like the green elf costume. But even like back to the acting again, like even the actors that were chose like around him as well. James Caan, who plays his actual father in this movie, is the one who's like the businessman and everything. Like he was a perfect choice for that, because by the end of the movie he realizes like maybe Buddy's right. I need to like lighten up a little bit, or not be so serious or as serious and stuff like that, and spend more time with his family instead of focusing on his job and everything. So he kind of like learns that lesson. But so you get like, actors like that to play a serious role around it. Peter Dinklage is in this for a little bit in a hilarious exchange where he thinks he's an elf.
And the funny part about that is, and a lot of that scene where Buddy is calling him an elf and he gets mad, most of that was improvised by Will Ferrell. Peter Dinklage had no clue that this was going to happen, so his reaction was, I mean, yes, he's still acting when he reacts to it, but he was able to take his character's personality and improvise himself and make this scene what it was, and then obviously after that, when he runs across the table and all that kind of stuff, they rewrote it so that fits, because now he's angry, so they're like, hey, let's add
he
this,
plays like another, I guess he was another like book publisher or author or something that Buddy's dad brought in to help him and his company like figure out what their next book should be. They were going to do a collaboration on it, and then Buddy comes in and like, hey, you're an elf and all this stuff. And then it was just this huge hilarious exchange, and I loved that scene. I think that might be my favorite scene, but everything in this movie is just hilarious.
He's an angry
elf.
Like,
we've reviewed Monty Python and the Holy Grail before on this channel and stuff, and that movie, we've said that's the funniest movie of all time. I think this might be like the funniest Christmas movie of all time.
Oh yeah, there's nothing that compares.
Because if you look at a lot of Christmas movies, like some of them are serious, like it still teaches you this important like Christmas lesson and everything, and that like I don't know, movies like A Christmas Carol or It's a Wonderful Life and things like that that got this more serious nature to them. Then there's other ones that are funnier, like the Santa Claus with Tim Allen and
which still teaches you a lesson, just also
like where he becomes Santa Claus and all that other stuff. And then you get a movie like this where it's basically like as if a kid. It's almost like a kid wrote this movie, sort of, or it was written from the perspective of a kid, because that's basically what Buddy is through the whole movie.
Yeah. And I mean, even the relationship in this movie between Buddy and Jovi, Zooey Deschanel's character, it's just like those two together. Just it would be like a weird pairing, you would think, but it seemed to work, and they got enough actors to fit perfectly with their roles that I think that's what made the movie.
And I feel like, and this is one of those movies that like I don't think you could ever like remake.
No.
Or if you made a sequel, it would have to be the same people.
At least Buddy would have to be the same, like depending on the premise of the movie. I guess. Yeah, you can't recast.
I hate it when they remake movies. Like they've done it so many times with like A Christmas Carol, but it was still the exact same story. But it I don't know why they needed to get other actors. I guess it was just for like a new generation and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So if you've never seen Elf, we do highly recommend you go check it out. It is hilarious. I'm sure you've probably seen a lot of like merchandise for it and everything else. It is. I would consider it a Christmas classic at this point, and I'm sure a lot of people do. If we'd like to hear any suggestions, if you have heard of a similar or similarly funny Christmas movie that we might not have heard of. Give us that suggestion down in the comments section. Also, if you've seen Elf, let us know what your thoughts are on that as well, for those who haven't. And also be sure to like this video and subscribe for more. This is, of course, our continuation of Christmas week. We've had an entire week full of Christmas-related content, so go check out any of these previous videos we've done if you haven't seen those yet. And coming up tomorrow on Christmas Day, we have a special Christmas movie-themed trivia coming up. So if you like those kind of videos, come back to our channel for that as well. Thank you for watching this video, everyone. And don't be a South Pole elf.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Subscribe.